From district to district, moving through the waters to Cayman Bracken, Little Cayman. Your station, your voice. All things Cayman, one radio, many people. This is home.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
In answer to his question about the subjects.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Oh, what a compliment. For that, I thank you.
What is happening now? There are hopeless and hungry.
Now it's time for us to stand up for God or we'll fall to nothing.
It's time now for Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Listening to the general public, what the public is saying.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Talk Today. I'm Kathy Miller. I'm your host on Wednesdays for Talk Today going forward. And this afternoon, if you were tuned in last Wednesday with me, you may have remembered our talk on home ownership in the Cayman Islands, the struggles that younger people are going through, and not really just younger people, basically anybody in Cayman that is of, I would say, middle class, lower than middle class, but not a really high income, the struggles that they're having with home ownership and the barriers to home ownership. So we were talking about that with three younger Caymanians and their experiences in buying their first home or searching for their first home. And today we are going to be welcoming home ownership now from the perspective of a realtor. And I have joining me in studio this afternoon, Megan Thompson, who's a sales associate and sales manager at Quavo. And then we were going to have the NAU talk about their pilot program, NAU, in our district. But unfortunately, at the last minute, they weren't able to come in. So we'll be having some open mic. And I'd love to talk about a few things there. First, your Valentine's Day traditions in the Cayman Islands, what you used to do back in the days when flower delivery wasn't available and the traditional big dinner dates wasn't a thing, what the old time traditions were for Valentine's Day, your kind of favorite love stories, and then a big story that erupted in the news this week, which was the Doctors Express story, the illegal raid that was decided this week in the courts. So I'd like to touch on that as well. So we'll be having open line after. You can give us a call at 1-800-534-8255, 949-8037, or 949-6990. You can WhatsApp us at 925-3261. I got to grab that WhatsApp phone from you, Paul. And we're going to go to a disclaimer and a short message.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255. Courtesy of Flow,
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. I am your host for Wednesdays, Kathy Miller. And in studio right now, I have Megan Thompson, sales associate and sales manager at Quavo. Megan, good afternoon. How are you doing this afternoon?
Good afternoon, Kathy. I'm good, and yourself?
I'm great, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Of course. Thanks for asking us to come on the show. We enjoy coming down here and talking about what we love to do, so thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You've been in real estate for how long now?
Going on 3 years in April,
Okay.
but, very active within the last 6 months since my move to Quavo.
Okay. So Quavo, what I understand, is a real estate firm, and it's all Caymanians that are working there, owned by a Caymanian. All sales associates are Caymanians.
Yep, we all
very
are.
refreshing.
We all are, except for our favorite buddy, Joe.
Okay.
Joe came to visit us from the UK a year ago. And he's pretty much been stuck here because of COVID. But yeah, we're all Caymanian, except for our buddy. But, he's Caymanian in our hearts. He fits in.
Okay, awesome. Well, that's great. That's good. So Quavo being a Caymanian firm, there's a little bit of a different, perspective. And what I've been seeing a lot more trending lately in the past couple of years is I am seeing a lot more Caymanians going into real estate. Have you been seeing that for yourself as well?
Definitely. Especially within the last 2 years since I've joined. I felt like I started to see a lot more of us following behind. So it's been great to see.
I agree, because you are one of the first, I would say, younger people that went into it. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I just saw more and more, which is great to see. So it either meant to me, okay, is the real estate market really exploding in Cayman? What's the big secret here? Am I missing something? But it's absolutely great to see, because it's just diversifying the job pool and what people want to do and can do in Cayman. So it shows more than just tourism or just finance and law. So it's very refreshing to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a great career. And I don't think there's anybody more qualified to sell Cayman than our young, Caymanians. And it's like, we know it, right? It's ours. So
I'd agree with you there. Absolutely. So I mentioned to you before the show started that we were talking about home ownership from the perspective of younger Caymanians that are searching for their first home or have bought a home already, and just experiencing the first few years of having a home, what the barriers were. So we had this talk last week. And for any of our listeners here, you can always go back to that interview. Just look for Radio Cayman on YouTube, and it was Wednesday, February 3rd. And it's the first 45 minutes, or really the first hour of Talk Today, that we were discussing that. So we're going basically from that conversation where we were looking at people, or we were talking with people who were looking for homes or had bought a home. And now we're going into the realtor's perspective, which is where your expertise comes in, Megan. Yeah. So thank you. Now, in regards to what I had just say, what do you think some of the common mistakes are with younger people that are just starting to search out to look for a home, or maybe they've already gotten a home? What are some of the, obstacles or mistakes that they're making when they're first starting out in this journey?
I definitely think a lot of us, and myself included, because before I got into the industry, I had a lot of misconceptions as well. I think a lot of us, we run into that kind of, we like to think we know it all. My parents would tell me that all the time.
Yes.
So just not being open and asking a lot of questions. The banks are pretty much black and white. You go in and you talk to them. They tell you this is what they'll give you. This is what you need to have. But I think on the real estate side too, it's always beneficial to ask more questions on that side. Even though the bank has told you one thing, ask us, because you might not be considering stamp duty fees, or you might not be considering the percentage you need for the actual property. Just having cash on hand, and I can't stress savings enough. Even when you think you've saved a lot, probably double or triple it, because there's just so much unknown that goes into it. I know we have options like pensions and stuff like that, but just even that holds up a deal, so just asking us, what we think, where you need to be, and just working with us. And I think a lot of the times we go to the bank, they say you qualify for 265. So when it comes down to the deal, you'll offer 265, and you're not realizing that you're on the hook for that 265. So if the valuation comes in at 240, 245, the owner is probably expecting you to be able to complete. If not, they'll relist it, if that makes sense.
So if they're looking for you to complete the 265?
The 265.
Okay,
so
because that's what they were selling
on
for.
the hook for cash for that balance if the owner decides, okay, well, we'll move on. There was probably another offer that came in for, the same amount, and maybe they have the ability to complete better than you do. So a lot about it is buyer qualifications and just being open. So myself as a realtor, I'm going to ask you a million questions. They're going to be super intrusive. I know a lot of us are very prideful. I am myself. So when a person starts asking me, how much do you have saved? Or did you go to the bank? It's not because we're being nosy. It's because we want to make sure you're in the best possible position. So,
but it makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it's literally wasting the buyer's time and your time in the sense of, okay, you don't even have maybe 5% saved. Yeah. So why are we doing this right now? Yeah. So being one of the first steps, as our panel last week also spoke about, going to the bank and finding out what you do qualify for, right?
Yeah, just having the conversation.
Now, you said banks can be pretty black and white. They'll tell you exactly what you need. Mm-hmm. Last week, I got the response that they feel like they need more information from the bank, more details, and I wasn't able to go back to that and be like, well, what are those? What are those details? What else do you need from the bank? Because I would agree with you. They really do tell you up front what it is.
Yeah.
they're not the one necessarily negotiating the deal, but they will tell you need your lawyer fees. Some people, first-time buyers, if you're a Caymanian, you don't have to worry about stamp duty, right? But I would have to worry about stamp duty, for example. But if you're a second-time home buyer, then you do have to worry about stamp duty, so you have to factor that back in, and a couple of other like insurance fees, and which I think is now mandatory, right? You have to have.
And you need life insurance. You
Right.
know, the house needs to be insured. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that goes into it. So the bank will present it to you. They do a fantastic job at it, you know. But I think we get that number in our head. Well, the bank said I can get $350, and we don't quite understand that the bank is giving you $350, but then you go into the process of evaluation, and you know that's a whole different number altogether. So the house value's over, value's under, then you know you're potentially needing extra cash, or you risk losing the deal altogether.
Can you explain how the valuation process works a bit?
Absolutely. So the bank has a list of approved valuators. So they basically go down, they walk around the house, they take photos, you know, they ask you basic questions, but it's on the structure. You know, they factor in where it's located, and they come up with a figure. It's mostly opinion based, but they'll use recent sales, you know, recent purchases, stuff like that to base that number.
Area.
Yeah, to base that number off of. And whatever that figure comes back in. And, you know, I've seen it time and time again. We do it last month, it's this figure. We do it this month. It might be off 5-10%. You know, we don't know. And, you know, that's just a number. But
so when should you get that valuation then, if it can change that quick?
It has to be through the bank. So whenever that process is set out, you know, we can do it by the owners, and it takes 5 months to sell, and it could change. It's just because it depends on who you're using, what their opinion of the property is, what number they're working off of, and, you know, we go from there.
So I had one of the panelists last week mention that they knew of a property that was being sold, and the bank went through a valuation company that was overseas. And they also used their own independent, so the buyer used an independent valuator as well.
Yeah.
That was local. And it was two very different figures. Is that a common, is that a common thing that the banks do, and going to an overseas valuator, and why would we do that?
I can't say I've ever heard of that instance. I'm sure if I talk to my colleagues, they might. But, you know, for me, pretty much everything I've seen has been local providers. The list that we get automatically, you know, government requires a certain list of them. The banks will use a certain list of them, but I'm not sure I've heard of the overseas. So I don't want to comment too much just in case it is something. But yeah, I mean, even with the local ones, and I'm not saying it's anything huge, you know, it could be $500, it could be $4,000. It's just, it's all opinion, right? So when we go in and we do our appraisals, you know, we look at what's sold within the last year, 2 years in that area or that development, and we use that. Sometimes, depending on the systems that they're using, they don't have, like, to-the-minute results. Like, if something sold yesterday, I can see that because being a part of Sariba, we have that kind of access on our system. But just say if government takes a few months or a couple of weeks to update that number or that sale, then they don't have that access.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. I do have a question. I believe we have a caller. I could see the light flashing, so I'm gonna wait on Paul to let us know. We do have a caller, so good afternoon, caller. Thanks for calling Talk Today.
Good afternoon. Interesting topic and guest as always.
Thank you, sir.
I just have a quick question for the young lady. She seems fairly new, but I'm sure she probably has a more open approach to some of these things. In terms of the valuation of properties, especially residential or land, do you think, we've all heard stories of, you know, problems, issues, differences in their valuations within short periods of time with different companies, all that. But my suggestion or my thought is, why not use the lands and survey evaluation, which is what the stamp duty is based on anyway. So why not use that instead of having to pay extra money to go to a private evaluator? Well, even if they had to pay government a few dollars for it, you know, it would be, I think, a more accurate evaluation.
Is this for if you're going to look for an independent evaluation? Because she had mentioned the banks have a list of evaluators, right?
So the banks, I understand what you're saying, yeah. So the banks typically require that you have one done anyway, right? And as I was saying to Kathy, I think the issue that we run into sometimes with Lands and Survey is just the updating of the information. We know that things take time. So in regards to that, from my knowledge, that Lands and Surveys, if you're applying for a stamp duty waiver, they will ask for the valuation that's recently been done through the bank. So I'm pretty sure that one is used across the board.
I understand, and maybe this is this is a service that probably doesn't even exist. But if Lands and Survey offered that as a service, we will do an official evaluation of your property for X amount of dollars as an option. Not to remove the private sector evaluators, but as an option, if I wanted to have a government evaluation, which I would figure would be more official and more binding rather than some that may vary $40,000, $50,000 within months of evaluations from stores that I've heard. Maybe that's something that if it could help you could pitch, or you all could pitch the government.
I'm sure they're listening.
Then I would risk losing all my evaluator friends, and I don't know how they'd feel about that one.
You probably make more commission anyway.
I don't know if I want to answer that. I might drive them out of business, but I completely understand what you're saying. I think the issue we might run into there is, it always changes. Something can happen tomorrow in the market that would significantly impact that valuation. Right. So unless that was being done, every 6 months, every year, I just see that being costly for the individual. Or if it was a requirement that, every year we had to have it done, I think we'd run into issues with that as well.
Not really, but government should have a formula that it uses to evaluate land. I'm sure it does. And, now that you mentioned it, that's probably one of the sources of the conflicts is the friendships between the real estate companies and agents and the evaluators. That has been identified by people as the probable cause of some differences as well. So it's probably not in your interest, as you say, to propose such a move, but I think a government evaluation should be considered. So I'll just throw it out there.
That's a great suggestion. Thank you so much for the suggestion, and also for pointing out the relationships that realtors will have with. It could be banks, it could be evaluation companies, it could be home insurance companies. So, there's definitely relationships involved, and we don't always know the intricacies of them. So it's a great suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, we're going to go to a commercial break right now. You can always give us a call at 1-800-534-8255, 949-8037, 949-6990, or WhatsApp us at 925-3261.
Stay tuned.
Don't forget to tune in Monday through Friday for Radio Cayman's local evening sports report during the 6 p.m. news hour.
Taking a look at Radio Cayman's local sports, I'm Dion Anglin.
It is proudly brought to you by King Sports Center, providing your fitness, recreation, and relaxation needs.
For the record.
For information that matters to you, the people. Hear from the government, the opposition, independents, and other experts on issues and solutions that affect you. For the record. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, tune into 89.9 and 93.9 FM from 7:30 to 9 a.m. for Cayman's new Straight Talk morning show. For the record.
I invite you to join me for the record. You are invited to be a part of this interesting and informative show. Embrace the opportunity to dialogue with your legislators, policymakers, and those charged with policy implementation.
For the record. Brought to you by
Coca-Cola. Available across the Cayman Islands from Tortuga Distributors.
Accept no substitutes. Taste the feeling with Coca-Cola.
Listen to the general public.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
All right, we're back here at Talk Today, and I'm Kathy Miller, your host. I'll be hosting on Wednesdays for Talk Today, and we are discussing the housing market from a realtor's perspective. And I have in studio with me Megan Thompson from Quavo. And Megan wanted to just touch on what the caller had just said, speaking about valuation and a suggestion that Lands End Survey do the valuation process as well. So Megan, you wanted to touch on something that the caller said.
I know that it was mentioned that, there is this concern of the relationships with realtors to evaluators, but, that's all done in like what I like to refer to as like a lottery system. There's a list of names and the bank randomly selects one. So we don't always know who we're going to get. It's our job basically to just open the door, let them in. If they ask us questions on, what's the sale price? Do you know of any that were listed recently? We just give them our feedback. We don't, try to manipulate, or at least I don't, I don't get too involved in that area of things. I just answer any questions. But I think he had a good suggestion, and, it's all about the changes we can make to make this easier for everyone and more consistent, because I do know that that's lacking. There's sometimes I get valuation numbers and I'm like, what? What do you mean? It's a bad thing and a good thing for us too. We feel what our buyers feel and what our vendors feel. So I think it was important to touch on that.
Yes, it's the thing is, so as a realtor, you have your clients who are your buyers, but then you have your clients who are the sellers. So I think it's a really hard fence to straddle, because ultimately, who do you serve the most here? I don't know if you want to answer that, or we'll just leave that as an open-ended metaphorical thing to think about right there.
That's the benefit of working under SREBA is, what your rules and your regs are. So it's pretty clear who you're working for at all times. We want to do what's best for everyone, but it is a difficult position when you're representing both. As much as agents want to be on both sides of the business, it's hard because, you know that someone really wants to buy and someone really wants to sell, and you need to work in the best interest of all times for both parties. So you end up kind of being a therapist too, which a lot of people don't realize. And, a lot of these people are your friends. They're people you work with, you've seen around. So it is hard because it's a lot on the line for both sides.
Buying a home is a very personal thing.
Yep.
I had mentioned last week, it's one of the greatest life goals that people have. To some people don't reach that goal, don't even get close to that goal. So when you are in the position and you can make that purchase, again, you have to work to keep that purchase, make sure your mortgage is paid off, and then you can relax a little bit, hopefully. And hopefully you've set it up where you can pass land off to the next generation, right? Ultimately that's the goal.
Yeah.
in changing, the way things have been for generations who haven't been so fortunate, I would say. One of our panelists last week, a couple of them actually mentioned what was really important for them, and what one of their biggest learning lessons was having a real estate agent in their first time process of buying a house and searching for a house or land even. They said it was just so important because there was so much that their agent taught them that they never would have been able to understand from an independent seller. Can you give us reasons why? I mean, you're a real estate agent, so I know you got to sell yourself here. Definitely. We know that. But, the practicality of it, why a real estate agent as opposed to an independent seller?
I can't tell you the amount of times that I've had like a client or customer say to me, I'm so happy I used you because I have a friend that tried to do it by themselves and this happened and that happened. It's like we're trained, so we know what to look for. So if I'm walking into a property and I notice that there's a potential mold stain on the roof, I'm going to say, we should do an inspection. You can decide what kind of inspection, but I'd recommend it. Or if I'm walking around the outside of a building, let's see the strata. Let's see what that looks like. Let's see if, this blows away. Do they have the money to fix it? Also, the valuation is a huge one, again, because sometimes when you're buying from somebody and they want to sell in 30, 40 days, but you're not where you need to be, valuation could take a month. It's just setting everyone's expectations, which I think us as agents do very well. We're very open and upfront, whereas if you're buying directly, an owner might withhold something that's paramount to the sale. So you could buy something and 2 weeks later your AC breaks, or you know, the windows start leaking. And, you know, we just make sure that you have all the tools necessary to do it successfully, and pretty much avoid as much headaches as possible. You know, these things happen, but I definitely think, and just the support, you know, when you have questions, especially with stamp duty or bank related, like we just have such a huge sphere of influence that we talk to everyone. We want to know, you know, what's going on. And it's also, if that seller has an agent, chances are we know each other. So we can have those real conversations. We can ask for more time if we need it, you know. So I would always say that there's a benefit. Of course. But I mean, there's some huge things that can go amiss if you don't have that support.
Also time.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm going to assume you're mostly a working professional and you might have a family. Single or with a family, you're working if you're looking for a house, unless you're one of the very few percent in this island that can afford to just buy homes and not be working. Yeah. You're just living off some generational wealth there. Yeah. But time is such a big factor. So that I think that's a really big time saving thing is to have that real estate agent. You don't have to go look for all these listings yourself or do some of those negotiation talks, as you were mentioning, and all the rest that goes into it. So yeah. I would say time is definitely something to consider if you are looking for an agent too. And there's so many different agents. So it's like, how do you know who you're going to go to? Is it a reputation that you're looking for with a certain firm, or maybe it's just personalities of people, but it differs, right?
Yeah. I mean, I always say that, like, what are you looking for? Because obviously I'm a very different agent than my boss, Howard, per se, right? He's got years of experience on top of me, but he's trained me well. And, you know, a huge part about me being in this industry was about being approachable. I think, you know, as real estate agents, we kind of have like this image around us that, you know, we all make a bunch of money and we work part-time and we don't do anything, you know, but there's some of us that we work really, really hard, and you know, it's 11, 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning and we're still going because, you know, this is our job, this is our career, this is our life. So if you're looking for someone who's passionate, or do you just want the job done? You know, it really depends on what you're looking for. And it's okay to shop around as well. But yeah, I would say it's what you want. Do you want that specific property? Because in that case, yeah, you want to work with the person who's selling it. But do you want someone who's going to guide you through and coach you through, or, you know, be your friend in the end? I mean, so many of my buyers I still keep in touch, you know. It's like what you want as a person and what aligns with you.
Okay. Okay, excellent. You mentioned a good point about it's not a part-time thing. Yep. And there is a lot of part-time agents out there, and I'm not knocking them, because any other way you can make a second income is great. But I think as a buyer, it's important to realize that part-time agent may not have as much time to put in for you as you would like. Your process may take a little longer. Again, I'm not knocking them, but it's just something to think about. We do have to go to our next commercial break, and again, you can give us a call at 1-800-534-8255, 949-8037, 949-6990, or WhatsApp us at 925-3261.
Thinking of getting a hybrid but don't know much about them? Vant Motors has lots of great reasons why you should choose a Toyota Corolla Hybrid or CHR Hybrid for your new ride. Hybrids save fuel, run cleaner, reduce CO2 emissions, and even recharge their batteries while being driven, so you don't ever have to worry about plugging them in. Both are super quiet as well as economical and fun to drive. So stop by Vant Motors to check out a new, fuel-efficient, eco-friendly Toyota Corolla Hybrid for only $26,900, or a sporty CHR Hybrid starting from $34,150 while stock lasts. Go Toyota. Go hybrid. Go to Vant Motors on Walkers Road.
Maintaining a strong mind and body through sports and general healthy living is a good course of action. But what about your spiritual man, your inner man? He has to be awakened, fed, exercised, strengthened, and led according to the will of God. So, have you heard the call? I'm evangelist Brother Joseph Joey Ebanks, and I'm inviting you to worship Wednesday and Thursday nights at 7:30. We are bringing the Word of God to our communities as Jesus commanded. Faith comes by hearing. So come and hear. Bring your own chair or simply park and listen to the Word of God from your vehicle, covering the Cayman Islands with the Word of God, one community at a time.
Have you heard the call? We'll be at the junction of Reverend Blackman Road and Stadium Drive, West Bay on February 10th and 11th at 7:30 p.m.
What's going on here?
Our time is now because the champ is here!
The district champions are the best.
What? You mean the district champions are coming to our show?
Of course. You were actually thinking about Proud of Them, weren't you?
Well, yeah. Proud of Them Honoree Jolyn and Leah is coming on the show too.
This week, we will be having the district cook-off champion representing East District.
I can't tell. There's Cayman Brac, Georgetown, West Bay, Bordentown, Northside, and East End.
The word of the week is impeach. IMPEACH. It means to charge with a crime or misdemeanor, specifically to charge a public official before a competent tribunal with misconduct in office.
You can join us this Wednesday from 4 to 5 p.m. right here on Radio Cayman, 89.9 FM, and you can also join us on YouTube Live, a program for all people by young people. Youth Flex, more Youth Flex, more Youth Flex, more.
Listen to the general public.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. I'm Kathy Miller and I am joined in studio this afternoon by Megan Thompson, who's a sales associate and sales manager at Quavo. If you're looking into the housing market, looking to buy land or property, definitely keep tuned to this discussion because we're hitting on the housing market from the realtor's perspective. Last week we talked about from the home seeker's perspective, land seeker's perspective, and now we're getting a little bit more information on what it's like on the realtor's side. Before the break, we were just speaking with Megan about looking for an agent. How do we find the right agent? Many buyers think that they're going to save money as well by not having an agent, right? They don't want to give the commission. They want to save whatever that might be with the commission. But what are the elements that these buyers aren't realizing?
I think, too, the commission is always the vendor's decision. So it's the person selling. So that's who covers the commission. So they decide when they're selling their house that they're going to take that percentage from what they take home. And then, that's all worked out. So I think a lot of times buyers think that we're going to charge them a fee just if they say, hi, I want your help. Okay, well, how much is that going to cost? We honestly work for free until the deal gets over the line. I know that maybe sometimes someone will charge a fee, but, us at Quavo, we don't. So I think there's a huge, they think that we're going to charge them for every single thing we do, but we don't. So it's technically the vendor's money in the end. And also, I think there's this, like I said again, there's this image around us that, we're going to charge for everything. We do this, or maybe we think we're better or we're not. So it's just have the conversation. Just reach out. We'll tell you everything. We won't charge you anything for reaching out. I'll send you 1 million spec sheets a day and never charge you for one, So I just think that they think there's hidden fees somewhere, but there's not. So, and again, we talked a little bit about the benefits of having us, right?
Right.
I think anyone can buy and sell, but it's just having that added knowledge and experience behind you of saying, okay, well, before I do this, let me see what my agent thinks about it. Or, let me go have a look and just take her. I might not even buy it, but just kind of getting her feedback. And, I might tell you something that you've never heard because you don't know what's happening on the market. I have that happen to me so many times. Oh my God, that's so expensive. Actually, not really, because here's what this looks like. And I think we can keep you up to speed as well with what's happening. If it comes on the market today, we'll send it to you right away, So there's so much benefits of just working with one of us.
So I've heard of instances where something does come on the market but doesn't actually reach, let's say, the Cereba site or a particular website for a real estate agency. And all of a sudden it's sold. So you don't even know it's out there and it's sold. And it's something that maybe you had an inkling that this house was going to go on the market, but it sold before you could even be notified of this. Is that a common practice? Is that, some people would call it some sort of like a backdoor handling between a real estate agent and the vendor. Maybe it just happened to go that quick. Maybe there was somebody that was interested and say, hey, I want to buy your house and it's not even for sale. Is there any insight you could give us to that?
I want to say, it just comes down to, so say, for example, I'm selling in a certain development and I had 3 offers come in on that one unit, and I know someone who really, really wants it. As it comes on the market, you're going to reach out to that person that you know who might be interested in hopes that you can get this deal over the line as fast as possible, working in the vendor's best interest. So it shouldn't be a common practice, but I know personally, like, I'll seek out apartments or homes because I know that I have someone who's desperate for one. So a lot of times that happens, but it should be listed. But again, we have waiting list and want list and clients who need this and clients who need that. So those conversations are had, but it should definitely be done in a way that everyone gets a chance. So we'll still do viewing schedules. We'll still accept offers. So yeah, it shouldn't be a common practice, but it does happen.
Okay. Now, in saying that, there's that bidding process, right? I don't too much understand the bidding process, but we had, again, one of our panelists last week was talking about, he did work in the UK in real estate, and he spoke about how that bidding process worked. So I hope I'm going to paraphrase this correctly, but I believe in the UK, it was, let's say there's a house in the market and there's 3 people that have put in a bid for it. And if the first offer was rejected, the vendor will look at the second or maybe the third offer and then decide from that. From what I understood, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, is that in Cayman, once, let's say, again, 3 bids went in for that home, if the vendor didn't want the first bid, then it just goes right back into the listings again, and anybody can bid for that home again. They're not even going to look at the second or third. Is that, but that was regulated in the UK, so I'm not sure if that's something that's regulated here, or if it's not necessary for people to go through. Is that a good or a bad thing for buyers?
Well, the way it works for us, especially under CEREBA, is if we show a property today and tonight an offer comes in, we have 24 hours to get that offer over to the vendor. It's then the vendor's decision whether they want to take it, do they want to counter and ask for more, do they want to, suggest changes in conditions or something. It's always open for that period of time. But if I have showings booked for tomorrow, I can't just cancel the showings because the offer is on the table. So what I'll do then is I'll go and I'll do those showings, and if there's a time frame on the offer that's in place now for, say, Friday, and today's Wednesday, I know that my vendor can spend 2 days thinking about it, and if another one comes up today, I have to present that as well. So anytime it goes over...
What if they came in on the same day?
Yeah, well then they both go to the vendor and they have to sit, look at them side by side. But then with CEREBA, again, if there's more than 3, it has to go through CEREBA. So we have a process where all the offers are sealed, we drop them off, they're sent directly to the vendor without little to no interference from us. And they review it. They'll ask us for our feedback. They'll say, okay, well, what does this mean? What do you think? What do you know about them? What have you heard, right? Because a lot of times we can put anything on paper, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. So I've never really heard where it'll go back, but it has to stay on the market, and we have to continue showing until an offer is accepted. So I think that's where it gets difficult, and where people think, okay, well, I don't stand a chance, but you do, and there's always an opportunity, or in most cases, to present your best and final. So if I present a number today and I know that there's more offers on the table, I'll get an opportunity to represent.
Right.
But if one comes in, it's higher, better, then they might just accept that.
And it's in their right.
Yep.
Isn't it?
Absolutely.
Because they're the vendor and that's who's selling, and
Absolutely.
That's who ultimately you'd be representing, right? That's who you're trying to sell the house for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And, as long as they're within that window of response time, if 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever comes in before Friday, it's up to them which one they go with.
Okay. Now you said something interesting when you said that the vendor might ask you, what do you know about this buyer?
Yeah.
Does that happen often? And how much does that weigh their decision? What exactly are they wanting to know about that buyer that would weigh that decision?
Because a lot of times the conditions don't say what bank you're getting financing through, so they want to know, do they have the ability to complete? What do you know about them? The deposit, okay, well, why is the deposit so low? They're allowed to ask those questions because at the end of the day, like you said, time, right? And it's mostly of the essence in any deal that we do. So when they're asking questions, they want to know that this can happen. A lot of times too, and, it's funny and it's not uncommon, is sometimes people just want to sell to a family, or they want to sell to a young couple, or they want to sell to somebody they know that's going to be happy there or use it. It's funny, but it happens, right? Because we're human. So when they ask those questions, that's really what it's about. If I'm selling my home that I work so hard on, I want to know who's going to take it over. I want to know who's going to take care of it,
That's a good point because, yes, we do that not even with homes, but with, other items. It could be your car.
Everything.
It could be, you have to give your pet up. Something like that. Is it going to a good home?
Yeah.
Who's now going to possess this item that meant so much to you, right? That is it's a very common way of thinking.
Yep.
Another way of looking at it is, do they have enough money to take care of it?
If
they do, boom, you can have it.
Exactly.
It makes it easier for me.
It's just going to work, Tell me a little bit about them. And, they're not doing it to be intrusive or malicious. They just genuine, what we're saying, Cayman, we're nosy. We like to know everything, we want to know about everybody. And it's just some people are really that emotionally tied to their properties,
Yeah, and understandably so. Absolutely. What are the factors that drives the prices up in the housing market? Because I know this is going to be a long question, and maybe we can sit on that for a second because I know in about a minute we're gonna break to the 1 p.m. news. But that is a big complaint that I've been hearing for years is just the housing market. The prices are just skyrocketing, and there's like a chorus of people just singing the song that this is not for Caymanians anymore. Cayman is no longer for Caymanians, especially when it comes to home ownership land, which isn't always going to be created. We only have a very limited supply of land here, right? And there's only so much room that you can do to develop. So when we come back from the 1 p.m. news and the commercial break, that's what I want to touch on what are the factors that drive the prices up in the housing market in the Cayman Islands.
Community radio with a different appeal. The voice of the people. Security through adversity. Stuck on you. Radio for all time.
You're listening to Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only 2 species that we have on the island.
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice.
It is in the best interest of the people of these islands.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
With your latest headlines, I'm Shanda Gallego from Radio Cayman's newsroom. Government reported the results of 271 COVID-19 tests on Tuesday. All came back negative. There are currently 730 people in isolation. More than 14,000 vaccines have been administered in Cayman against COVID-19. Turning to international news now, the World Health Organization recommends using the vaccine developed by the University of Oxford and AstraZeneca even in countries tackling new variants of coronavirus. Some new forms of the virus appear to make vaccines less effective. The WHO also says the vaccine can be used in people aged over 65, which some countries have advised against. Spacing out the 2 doses, as is happening in the UK, makes the vaccine more effective, it advises. Prosecutors in the U.S. state of Georgia are investigating attempts by former U.S. President Donald Trump to overturn results from last November's election. Mr. Trump was recorded telling the state's top election official to find more than 11,000 votes, enough to give him victory there. The official is heard replying that Georgia's results are correct. Joe Biden's win in Georgia and other swing states secured him the presidency. And the U.S. Coast Guard rescued 3 Cuban nationals from a deserted Bahamian island where they had been living off coconuts for 33 days, the agency announced. While doing routine patrols on Monday, U.S. Coast Guard air crews saw the 2 men and a woman waving makeshift flags on Anguilla Key. The Coast Guard dropped down a radio, food, and water to the trio on Monday and rescued them off the island on Tuesday. The Cubans' boat capsized in rough waters about 5 weeks ago, the trio told the Coast Guard, and they swam to the island. Those are your latest headlines here on Radio Cayman. I'm Shanda Gallego.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Your voice, your choice, your radio.
Now you can listen to Radio Cayman everywhere.
Everywhere.
Can you hear me now? Everywhere. Everywhere.
Yes, right from your Android or iPhone. Download the Radio Cayman app now on your Android or iOS phone.
The Radio Cayman app
is where you can listen to Radio Cayman everywhere you go.
Everywhere we go, we go. Everywhere we go, we go.
Find it in the Google Store, the Apple Store, or use the link at www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Yes, now you can listen to Radio Cayman everywhere.
Listen to the general public.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. I'm Kathy Miller, your host on Wednesdays. We are talking about the housing market in the Cayman Islands from the perspective of a realtor. And I have with me in studio this afternoon Megan Thompson, Sales Associate and Sales Manager at Quavo, which is a firm that's 99% Caymanians and Caymanian owned as well. So if you're looking for a local firm with people who really know Cayman, grew up and lived in Cayman, or are selling Cayman, check out Quavo for sure. You can give us a call at 1-800-534-8255. That's toll free for Flow customers, or 949-8037, 949-6990, or you can WhatsApp us at 925-3261. And before the break, I asked Megan a bit of a loaded question there, but the question that I asked is what she thinks from her experience as well. This discussion is basically from her experience as a realtor. Don't take everything in black and white here. This is her experience in her time as a realtor in the Cayman Islands. So the question that I had asked her, what are the factors that drive up prices in the housing market? And if you could touch on that for us, give us some of, what your thoughts on that are.
It's really about what's happening in the world and, what's happening around us. So, a lot of these developments are going up. Where are they going up? All of that contributes to the value of things around it, right? So, for instance, if they're putting in a road behind your property, that automatically drives it up as well. I think a huge one, and I'm not quite sure how everyone else feels, and we're starting to see it, is Cayman has become a bit of a safe haven for COVID. We're one of the places in the world where we have that level of protection, and you can come here and live freely.
Are you interested in a career?
I feel like Paul there just wanted to stick in a quick PSA.
So I think, in time we'll start to see where that is impacting it as well. I know people look at it and they say, wow, it's so expensive, but you have to think from inventory perspective as well. We have such high demand, especially in that, I want to say 250 to 450 area. So I would like to put a positive spin on it and say, if you have something that you think is worth selling or that you're not tied to or emotionally connected to, have the valuation done. Think about selling it because, that's also a room to grow into something bigger or maybe penetrate a different side of the market and, upgrade essentially. So I like to look at the positives in it as well because there really is a need, so if you think you have something and you built it for 150 back in God knows when, check it out, see how much it's worth now. I know the market prices are a huge touch point right now, but for some people they're happy about it. They bought something for $210 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, and now it's almost 100K more. So for some people, it's really great, but I know for some people it's not. But I try to look at, both sides.
Absolutely. I remember looking at a condo in a development kind of around the schools, and this was probably 2010-ish, 2011 maybe. And I was speaking to my mom about it. I'd gone home, so it could have been 2012. I can't remember. The years just go by so fast these days, or these years, I should say. But I remember looking at it and thinking, okay, wow, this would be great. But I was pretty sure I didn't have what I needed to, at least just for the down payment there. And it was going to take some time. So I was like, okay, in my head, this is what I've got to do for the next couple of years. And then I got off track off that. But anyways, looking at that condo now, it's like the 1 bedroom with a loft, I think it was, rents for around $2,000 a month. And that the increase went up to about, I think, $60,000 or so, like when I saw it being resold. So this is after somebody's lived in it for a couple of years, and it's just being resold at maybe $60K more than it was even first on the market for. And there's a couple places like that in South Sound as well, where I couldn't believe how the value just went up really huge. But it's a number of different factors. So when you're seeing, as you said, the other kind of high rises or market living areas happening around you, that's going to drive that price up for sure.
Definitely, yeah.
And we are a COVID haven at this moment. I can't remember the number, but I believe it's just under 100 for how many like digital nomads, they like to call them, that have relocated to the Cayman Islands and are working here remotely for businesses, their business, which could be located somewhere else in the world. But people find it safe here, and they want to come here. So there's it's like a price to pay. But that's also really hard for people who are, you're born and bred here.
Yep.
And you're being pushed out of the market.
Yep.
And from your perspective, what you can see as a realtor, there's demand from all categories for homes. So you have even for less than $250. So $250 I would think is like almost like for a brand new 1 bedroom condo, you're looking at about $250. I think that's pretty fair to say. Yeah. And that's brand new. So for something less than that, if you're looking for just under $200 or less than $250, it's going to be probably an older structure. You're probably going to have to do some work to it. It may not be in the best area for you. Yeah. And those are some of the sacrifices that you have to make, and it's unfortunate, but it's the reality of it. Yeah. And it's just it's a hard thing. And I think that's what people are having trouble just grasping, is how are they going to have a home or land here? Like, it's running out. Yeah.
I think the one thing I can say is, I feel that too. A lot of people don't realize, but I'm 6th generation Caymanian on both sides. So I've lived this. I know I'm personally going through it, but I think instead of us all kind of sitting there and thinking, oh my God, I'm never going to penetrate this market and getting discouraged, we have to push harder. We have to fight harder. And the time is now, because we've seen what the market's done, in the last 10 years. Do I see it dropping? No, but a lot of us kind of wait for that, right? Like, it's going to go down. It's eventually going to go down, versus let's just get to it. I had that same conversation with myself. What do I need to do? Where do I need to be to get to where I want to be? Because I've seen the changes. And I think instead of hoping that it'll stop, because 10 to 1, it's not going to, I'm going to get my share and fight for my share before it disappears, essentially. So I feel that, and I see it. I also work with a lot of people who, no matter how hard they try, they just can't get there. And just keep going. Just don't get discouraged. Just push through. It sucks, but we got to work with it,
Yeah, because it doesn't look like it's changing. 2020 was still a pretty strong year in real estate. And from what I've read, 2021 is predicted to be even stronger. Mm-hmm. And I know the mortgage rates went down a little bit. There was some relaxation with mortgages for a few months with people. You don't have to pay. You're going to have to pay a little bit down the line, but in helping with how the pandemic has affected a lot of incomes for people, or people lost their jobs and stuff. So we did have relatively somewhat low mortgage rates, but that's also tied to the U.S., isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like what's going on there will affect us no matter what.
Yep.
And there's just so many different factors to look at.
Yep. Last year was I think a record year for a lot of agents and a lot of individuals here in Cayman in regards to property. I mean, we got the pension break, the pension break as well. So a lot of people who couldn't buy before COVID could buy now. And so it was a huge year all around for vendors, purchasers, agents. But, I just don't see it changing, not right now. But again, that's my personal opinion. I can't say I sit and watch the markets in the U.S. or anywhere else, but right. I just, I think it's going to hold.
So for 2021, you think the same thing? It's just going to still stay strong, and we're not looking at the market, at least locally. Mm-hmm. Our predictions. Yeah. It's not going to drop.
I don't think so. Not mine.
Not quite yet. There is a lot of development trending towards high-end homes here. So it's not necessarily... You would find some developments. I don't necessarily see them being made anymore, where I think it's like the Frank Hall Homes, for example, where it was you get a nice little plot of land and a nice little home, and it's for a good price. And I don't really see that happening anymore. I don't know what happened there. I'm not sure if it's just a greed thing as a developer, and you're not a developer, so you can't necessarily answer on this, but from looking at it, like, okay, we got this plot and we're gonna put they've changed the law so you can put higher structures along the beach, for example, or in other areas. So, but that's selling at still such a high rate, and that's part of how is this affordable? Yeah. But then we got to look at government. Mm-hmm. So there's no restrictions currently in place in developing. So there's nothing saying that you have to create homes, valued at a certain price to be affordable for everybody across the board. Yeah. There's no really restrictions to foreign investment. And that is one of the key things that I want to wrap up at least with in our last segment here of the conversation with you. So foreign investments in property ownership, to me, I think is a huge problem for the Cayman Islands. There's a lot of people overseas that you're seeing new condo developments come up, and you're buying them right away. You're able to resell them once they really do hit the market, once they're ready to move into. Or you're just renting it out for different things like Airbnb. I think we had talked about that during the break. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of an issue. I mean, it's a huge issue. A lot of these people don't spend any time in Cayman, but they're owning property here. And it's a little heartbreaking because it's what are you really contributing to Cayman? You're actually just reaping the benefits of Cayman and not putting anything back into the island, the community. You don't live here. You don't really contribute to the economy in any other way. Yeah. So foreign investment is in property is something that I do want to touch on. We have to go to our next commercial break, and then we can get into some of your thoughts on that.
Are you interested in a career in IT? The Spring UCCI Cisco NetAcad is offering more than 15 scholarships to new IT Academy students. The scholarship covers half of the tuition of the cost of the course. UCCI's IT Academy courses include CompTIA A+ certification, cybersecurity, CCNA Cyber Ops, programming essentials in Python, and Internet of Things. To apply for a scholarship, visit www.ucci.edu.ky/Cisco-NetAcad-scholarship. The deadline is February 10th, and classes start on February 15th.
Hi, I'm remodeling our bathroom. I have a few questions.
Sure.
What are some ideas to make my bathroom feel larger? How do I know if I'm picking the right vanity? How do I choose a new toilet or a new countertop? Also, the lighting is terrible. Can I put a window or a skylight? And do I really need an exhaust fan?
You've come to the right place. At Brand Source, we custom design kitchen and baths, and our talented design team can help answer your questions. Whether you're looking for a modern, functional family bathroom or a luxurious personal retreat, we'll help create that beautiful space that makes your home yours. And if you're in a rush for a new look and have a limited budget, our ready-to-install bathroom vanities, built with solid wood and countertops of the finest materials, are a quick and easy remodeling solution.
For the very best in custom-designed kitchens and baths, visit Brand Source Home Gallery on Dorsey Drive, Industrial Park, Cayman's Kitchen and Bath Center.
Your Radio Cayman 6 p.m. news, Monday through Friday, is brought to you by Logic. Your life connected.
Listen to the general public.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. You can give us a call at 1-800-534-8255, 949-8037, 949-6990, or 925-3261. Paul in the studio just told me that we had a caller and he hung up. I'm so sorry, caller. I didn't even know that we had one. So my bad, and hopefully you will give us a call again. We are talking with Megan Thompson from Quavo, and she's a sales associate and sales manager, a young Caymanian in the real estate business here in the Cayman Islands. So it's very refreshing to have somebody with your perspective, your youth,
Thanks.
and your interest in real estate in Cayman, and to, you know, this is a different career, or I would say a newer career for Caymanians that I'm seeing a lot more people go into, and you know, you have a different perspective coming in. So I appreciate you being here for this conversation.
Thank you.
Before we went to the commercial break, I mentioned about possibly any restrictions for foreign investors that are looking to buy homes or any property, land in the Cayman Islands. And I know you have some things that you want to touch on. Last week I mentioned that Bermuda, since 1956, they had a law in place that did not allow foreigners to buy in Bermuda. And that's a small island that's very, very similar to Cayman, very similar GDP. They have the tourism, law, finance. That's what they're known for. Those are their pillars of their economy. And yet they realized how they needed to protect their land and make land and homes available for Bermudians. Now in 2015, they relaxed that law a little bit, allowing foreign investors to buy, but there was still restrictions on that. So you still have to get permission from the government. You still have to pay certain fees to the government to do this, to own land. And it's still not that easy, and it could only be land over a certain annual rental value, or a property over a certain annual rental value. Now, come to 2018, a much larger country, New Zealand, actually put restrictions in place for foreign investment. So you could not buy a home or any land in New Zealand unless you're one of the two countries that are a trading partner with New Zealand. One of those countries is Australia. I forgot what the other country is. I keep forgetting to make that note again. But it's so interesting to me because that's still quite a large country that could see, whoa, while I know New Zealand is very mountainous and a lot of the terrain may not be the best suited for development, there's still so much beautiful land there and a great quality of living in New Zealand. They also saw the need to protect their land and make it available for the indigenous people. So going into the Cayman Islands now, I know previously we had some laws in place for this. Things got relaxed. We can't blame foreign investors entirely, or even people in Cayman developing in the Cayman Islands and selling homes or condos at a really high value because there's nothing that restricts them from this. What are your thoughts, Megan, on this whole scenario?
I mean, I have to, agree with you in a sense of, what are they giving back? And, we've thrown this question around our office so many times just in regards to, maybe they have to live here, for a certain period of time, 10 years or whatever the case may be. Maybe when they build these big developments, we need some, lower income housing built on the back end of it, And again, I mean, looking at what other countries do, why can't we take some notes? In regards to, like, I looked at Barbados. You have to go through a third party, which is the central bank, to get approval, and then you're taxed, right? Like, why don't we incorporate something other than the stamp duty where they have to actually continue to contribute
and
to
this
the
is
country?
For foreign investors,
yeah, for foreign
right?
investors, yeah.
So that, as in, so in foreign investors, I'm more referencing people who don't live in the Cayman Islands, who aren't a resident or a Caymanian for sure, right?
Yep.
So I don't know why the word tax seems so scary.
Yeah, they have to pay it everywhere else, right? And it's huge because we get that stamp duty waiver, right, which is great. So we have that added benefit. But we know that there's definitely money to be made, and that's why a lot of the other countries do it. Yeah, you can invest here, but we're going to require you to pay a certain amount of what you make back into our economy. And, I think it's quite fair. But then again, it'll all come back to if we're taxing one party, we might have to tax the next. So I try to stay out of those politically driven conversations.
Possibly. I mean, possibly that could happen, but it's a starting point for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you're not a resident and you're not Caymanian,
Mm-hmm.
I think, you're not living in the Cayman Islands. It could be maybe even a certain amount of years. Have you been living here for a certain amount of years?
10 years.
It could be, okay, you suggest 10 years. Wow.
Yeah, I think so.
I've surpassed that.
I think so. I think it's a good base. I mean, we live here our whole lives and we can't get there yet. So
right. It's
like, how do we make this easier on our Caymanians and residents? When I say Caymanians, I don't just mean, Caymanian. I mean, all of us who live here and this is our home, how do we make it easier for them? And again, we have to start saving it because we're not making any more land. Like,
right.
Once it's gone, it's gone. And we just have to find a way. I mean, I would never say stop it because I know the country benefits heavily from it. But how can we do it a little bit differently so that everyone is getting a piece and making out evenly,
I agree. And I don't say stop it either.
Yeah.
My only suggestion is to have some sort of restrictions in place.
Mm-hmm.
Don't make it such an open playing field for anybody just to come up here and swoop land, swoop property, and really not care about anything to do with the country, just make some money off of it.
Or having never even seen it, right? Like never even been here, never even, spent a weekend or a week just having something to better manage it, I think.
Right. That's scary to me, having never been here. I know the virtual tours are a big thing, so that's a lot of way people are selling.
Yeah, huge.
Do you find you get a lot of requests for that?
More so for my rentals, just because of the quarantine period and how fast things go. We'll do a lot of like video calls and stuff like that. You can do offers based on viewing if you know you're going to be here in a week or two. But yeah, it happens.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I don't see a lot of options when it comes to like rent to own. Is that, because that's something that I would want to think about for me, for example. So is that a trend that we can see coming, or is that just not from a realtor perspective, are you against that, or?
To be honest, as an agent, I more so try to stay away from it because I feel like there's so much unknowns on both sides, until you purchase that property and that registers in your name, anything can happen, right? So you run that risk, and say there's one little line on a contract that you miss, or on the vendor side, they stop paying for it, but they're occupying it and you don't live here, and whatever the case may be, both parties, I think, run the risk of losing it in some way, shape, or form.
Okay.
Or if you have a 25-year lease to own and something happens to you halfway through, then, what happens then? So I don't know much about it because I tend to stay away from it just because, for me, until that's in my name, I could place a charge, I'm sure, but it still wouldn't feel right in a sense. So I'm not sure how popular it'll become. I know it was more popular back in the day. But yeah, I mean, personally, I always advise people, think of the risk of that on both sides.
Okay. I know I kind of segued there for a second with the rent-to-own question, but going back to the hopeful restrictions that I would like to have on foreign investment on property and home ownership here in the Cayman Islands, you had mentioned to me, I think during the break, that there was a law that you wanted to bring up.
Yeah, so, and, you know, my lawyer aunties will probably call me when I'm done, but, you know, they can buy up to 2 rental properties and 1 for them to live in before they have to get the license in a company, et cetera, but it kind of has the ability to never end, if that makes sense. Because,
can you explain?
Yeah. So I can buy 2 investment properties in my name.
As a foreigner?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I can buy 1 in my name that I live in. So I can live in 1, I can rent 2. But then if I want to acquire more, I can apply for a company, have a Caymanian partner, and then make purchases under the company as well. So it just kind of has the ability to keep growing, whereas maybe if we stopped at 2 rentals, 1 dwelling, that could make a difference, you know, because this rule applies to us as well.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
And there's already so many registered companies here.
Yeah.
Like 18,000 in one building.
Yeah, plenty.
So
yeah.
Don't have to mention that building. I think we can guess which one that is.
Yeah.
So that could be circumvented already very, very easily.
Yeah.
If they were looking to.
Yeah, and you know, again, like, not to stop anyone from progressing, because I know a lot of us do it as well, you know. When I say us, I mean Caymanians and residents. We buy properties under companies as well, and it's great, right? It's great to build a portfolio, but maybe that's one thing that we could have be specific to Caymanians and residents, that, you know, we can have that ability, but no one else really.
Okay. We do have a caller online, and we're going to take that caller right now. So thank you for calling Talk Today. Good afternoon, caller.
Good afternoon, ladies. I have only listened in sporadically, 1, because I'm doing something else, and number 2, I'm a little bit hard of hearing, and you're 2 soft speakers. Oh. So I didn't get everything, and if I say something that you covered, then you just stop me. But I know there was quite a number of years ago, there was a move to classify certain lands to be available for sale to non-citizens, and other land was to be reserved for citizens only. And it was quite a battle about it, because I remember in particular one legislator who is still a legislator, still an MP today, said at the floor of the assembly, said, "You mean to tell me that my neighbor living down the road from me can sell his land to a foreign individual or company or family, whichever way you want to look at it, and I, just literally a few feet away from him, can only sell my land on the local market?" And the consequent differences in the way it is valued and the way it is priced. And so the motion was DOA. It didn't go anywhere, and I can see why, because many people, ever since I've been here, and that's been a while, they have made their money on selling family land. Many people that are homeowners today, luckily for many, they have sold their lands and made the money that they're living off of now, because they had no great skills that were documented, and as such they slowly but surely got kind of marginalized out of the higher paying jobs, which is still the case today. And so the funds that they were making off the land is what they were using to buy the new comforts as they came along, because prior to, let's say, 1985 or so, if you went to the supermarket or if you went to a hardware store, the offerings were quite different from what they are today. And that has to do with the increased population, with the size that the market has become as a result of many new people moving here and staying. And so the Caymanians, like everywhere else, people have embraced new conveniences in terms of what they have at their home, or maybe a second car, or things like that. And many times it was financed by the selling of the land. Unfortunately, what we have now is that the old tradition of the younger generation coming up getting a piece of land, family land, to build a house on, is no longer the case, because the families no longer have the land. And so it is many in I'm married and I live in West Bay. We have relatives that have young people, young parents, and they're trying to get ahead in life. They have qualifications, they have relatively good paying jobs, but they find it next to impossible to actually become homeowners along with having to pay rent in the meantime if they have to go out on the open market and look for it. So it is a very difficult situation. But remember also now that if you want to qualify for permanent residency or Cayman status, the law actually requires that you have a certain amount invested, owned property or something like that. So it is a very complex situation. And to further my point about the younger people becoming homeowners, which of course is a desirable thing to have, the rent-to-own version, to me, is one of the better options that could be available a little more often than it is currently the practice, because there are now several projects going up right around where I live in West Bay, and a 600 square foot one-bedroom apartment now runs close to 300,000 Cayman Island dollars.
Yes.
That's just an incredible amount. My wife and I owned some apartments, and we sold them sometime after Ivan. And they were 600 square foot one-bedroom apartments, and we sold them for under $100,000 a piece. And now these newer developments, they attract these unbelievably high prices to where even we own a decent home, right? But what I thought it was worth until recently, when I was corrected, I would have barely been able to afford buy a two-bedroom apartment, even though it might be desirable for me to scale down. Coming out of a 3,000 plus square foot house into something smaller. As I am getting older, I don't seem to be able to stop that. And I could do with far less space. But, the prices for new places is just unbelievably high. I'm not sure what, you were discussing at the beginning, I think, some of the things that drive up today's prices, and I'm sure that the market conditions have a lot to do with it. But, why it would be like that in the residential areas in West Bay, I'm not quite clear. But I'm sure it has something to do with demand as well, unless, of course, the asking prices are posted and then people come in and say, okay, you want 300,000, how about I give you two? I'm not sure how that flies in our society. So those are the comments I wanted to make.
Thank you so much, caller. Please stay on the line, because you had mentioned that you had homes or apartments years ago that you sold for 100,000?
Under 100,000.
Under 100,000.
And considerably under 100. I would say, around 80.
Okay, and how many years ago was this?
Okay, that would have been, Ivan was in 2004. So we probably sold them around 2006.
Okay, wow. Okay, so at least in the last 15 years here, you did have, you sold apartments at around 600 square feet. Was I correct in remembering?
Yes, that's correct.
For around 80,000, okay.
Correct.
All right.
And on top of that, by the way, I think that was U.S.
Oh, geez. Wow. Wish I knew you back then. That's for sure.
Well, I didn't sell them individually. We sold them on block.
Okay.
But maybe that's why the realtor didn't even have time to advertise them. I was probably too modest. I don't know. But I thought I was getting fair value for my property that we were selling.
Okay.
And obviously, like I said, I think I asked the realtor concerned for an idea of what they might be worth. And he gave me a number, and the same afternoon he called back, by the way, if you want to sell them, I have somebody.
Okay.
You know, and it was the number that he mentioned was coinciding with what I considered to be about market value at the time.
Oh, all right. Interesting. And things have changed quite drastically in those 12, 15 years, yeah.
Very.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I do want to correct you on one thing. I believe you said that it was law to have land or be invested in property if you're going for permanent residency or status. I'm not sure about status, but I know that it's not a law. It is very suggested that you are invested in home ownership or property because or land because, you know, it gives you a certain amount of points, but it's not, you don't have to have it. I've known people who've been rejected and they've owned their home. And then I've known people that are not even near that.
I don't mean to cut you, but you mentioned Bermuda. Of course, Bermuda is not all that interested in taking in a lot of new citizens.
Yes. Yeah, so it's I'm not sure what their scenario is right now, but when I was looking into this a couple of weeks ago, prepping for last week's show, that was something that I was looking at and how they were dealing with land and who they were selling to and how that whole scenario was going. So that's why I brought Bermuda, because it's an island that's very close and it's very much like Cayman. So and we are looking to increase our population to about 100,000. So we're
I don't think
66
that'll take long.
So. It might not, but that means that the demand is definitely increasing and we don't have enough homes that are meeting the demand for all the different pricing categories. So,
well, I would venture to say to you, and I'm saying that with saying that I am getting older. I'm a lot closer to. Anyway, never mind. I'm retired, in other words, and so I'm looking at it from that perspective. But it looks like the whole island is under construction.
Well,
for residential things. I mean,
it is under construction quite a bit.
Down Northwest Point Road, in West Bay, along Elizabeth Street, there on Church Street in West Bay, then on the connecting road between Farrington Lane, Willie Farrington Street, and the Esterly Tibbetts Highway. There's a big lot of apartments going up there. I mean, there must be several hundred just in West Bay alone.
Which means a lot more properties coming on the market, which, as Megan was telling us from earlier, if you know you're looking, try to have your deposit, everything ready to go, because these things get snatched up fast. So thank you for your input. Thank you for letting us know. I appreciate your contribution to this conversation. We have another caller online, so we're going to take that call right now. Thank you for calling Talk Today. Caller, go ahead. Oh, caller's gone. All right. Right when we were going to the caller, caller's gone. All right. Megan, any thoughts on what that last caller just said to us?
I feel like he made some really good points. You know, he seems to be quite informed in regards to everything that's going on in the market and in regards to properties and you know, I enjoyed listening to him. I could also hear that, you know, he wasn't Caymanian, but he showed a lot of respect for our island. You know, everyone has their own side. I'm friends with developers as well, and, you know, it's a huge thing now about these 600 square foot, you know, apartments that are coming up, and they're just not making them like they used to. But back in the day, you know, building materials, supplies, getting stuff here, it also didn't cost as much, right? So cost of living's going up, so they got to pay their crews, you know, in accordance with what's happening there. So, you know, I can see the developers' perspectives as well. But again, it's how we better manage it, right? Who's allowed to buy into these things?
Sorry to interrupt you, but there was duty waived on building materials, construction materials, for a number of years in Cayman. I think that might have just ended. I could be wrong, but there was a concession for that for sure. So I think that made that made things even easier for the developers.
Yeah, definitely, and the convenience, right? So, and then on the other hand, you know, when he mentioned, which I wasn't aware of, and I hope he can forgive my not knowing that, but the conversation of who can sell land to who, I definitely don't think that that would be the solution either. Basically cutting out parts of Cayman and saying, yeah, you can make this, but I can't. I don't think that that's the way forward either. So I'm actually kind of happy that, you know, that got pushed out. But it's kind of with everything else, right? Like setting a cap, you know, even if it's a yearly cap or, you know, every 5 years of how much of it we allow to happen and what it looks like and how much money can they spend, you know, like just not cutting us into pieces. I feel it happens way too often in Cayman where we think the solution to our problems is let's just split everything up. Let's just put this here. Let's just put that there. Let's make this worth that. And I definitely don't think that that's the way forward either. So I was happy to hear his feedback on that.
Right. That almost sounds socialist in terms of of thinking how things should go, and it doesn't work.
I know. That's why I tell you, stay away from politics. I just don't do it.
I don't blame you. All right, we're going to go to our next commercial break, but if there's anything, I think we're good here. So if there's anything you wanted to leave with our listeners and let them know about the housing market from your perspective, any contact details you want to give them if they want to get in touch with you?
Sure. I'll start with just saying thanks for having me. It was great. It was a great discussion. You know, it was good to hear people's opinions on what's happening and, you know, what they think and a way forward. So I would definitely say if you're not registered to vote, get registered if that's not already gone. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Darn.
For this election, yes.
Yes. So that would have been my feedback is if you're not, like, you know, let's get involved. I find a lot of times we have a lot to say in the background, but even if it's coming to sit on your show, Kathy, and having these conversations, you know, let's do it. But my contact is 936-8085. Call me anytime. Shoot me a WhatsApp. You know, let's have the conversation. And if there's anything, like I said, that I can leave with is just don't get discouraged. You know, it's like with everything else in life. If we back down 10 to 1, someone will have a 1-up. So let's just keep fighting and, you know, go to the bank, have the conversation, save the money. And my email is megan@quavo.com. If you want to reach us at the office, the number is 745-8286.
And Quavo is spelled
Kuavo.
All right, there we go. Thank you so much, Megan, for joining us. We're going to go to a commercial break, and then we're going to have Open Line.
Bacardi presents One Love Legends of Reggae Concert, Saturday, February 13th at Coral Beach, featuring Mr. Notch and Local Motion 345, Erica Asai, Bonafide Cayman, and DJ Craig, covering legendary reggae music with a lovers rock twist for this pre-Valentine's Day show. Catch the free pre-show from 4 p.m. with the Neverines and Sugar Daddy. Tickets to the main event, $25, available from eventpro.ky or ticket outlets, Coral Beach, Blackbeard's Liquor Stores, Winner's Circle, FIS MoneyGram, Funky Tanks, Island Naturals Cafe, and ShopRite. One Love Legends of Reggae Concert is brought to you by Bacardi, Coral Beach, Burger Shack, Supermix, Caymanian Times, and Radio Cayman.
As we ride the hamster wheel, scampering along the treadmill of living, we try to reset to this new normal, this new life. Where getting away is staying right here. Where vacation is staycation, staying safe. Where focus is surviving minutes, hours, days of anxiety. Step away and say hello to the latest exhibition of the National Gallery. Say hello to Alchemy by Cayman's premier sculptor, native son Horacio Esteban. Lose yourself in moments of geology meeting history, meeting botany, meeting zoology, meeting art. Where Caymanite and coral and unearthed cedar of thousands of years strike a pose in art. Bring your family. Leave your stress at the doors. Wellness, renewal, mental peppermint. Alchemy at the National Gallery, supported by Rotary Central Community Service. Rotary opens opportunities.
How can you take your business from good to great and thrive in the new normal? By finding the smartest, most powerful IT solutions to optimize your business operations. And now, Digicel Business Hub is making it simple for you. High-speed Wi-Fi, mobile and office phones, IT security, Microsoft Office with Teams, and much more. Everything your business needs to level up in the new normal. Get world-class IT for your business with Digicel Business Hub. Sign up today. Call us on 623-3444 or visit our website, digicelbusiness.com.
King Sports Center takes pride in being more than just an ordinary gymnasium. For 14 years, their multi-purpose facility has been providing the community with a variety of sporting, recreational, and relaxation activities. King Sports Center has a bowling alley, lounge bar, multi-purpose rooms, powerhouse gym, rock climbing wall, bungee jumping, a 10,000 square foot rink, and so much more. For more information on the variety of services, call their friendly staff today at 946-5464 or email kings@candw.ky or visit www.kingsportscenter.com. King Sports Center, your one-stop shop for fitness, recreation, and relaxation.
That thing we've been saying for 64 years? Ignore it. Eat the KFC wings, drink the KFC gravy, fill up on fries. Just please forget the thing we normally suggest. You know, that thing you used to do with your tongue after finishing a delicious piece of our KFC chicken. We get it. It's not easy. There's a reason why it's been our slogan for over half a century. But the world's drastically changed of late, and as soon as we can embrace the change, the sooner we can all get back to doing what we do best. KFC. It's good.
Radio Cayman News.
Once the 90% target for vaccinations for those older than 60 has been reached, border controls can be changed.
This is a really strong signal of support from the UK for Cayman and the overseas territories.
This week, the Elections Office published the revised Register of Electors.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice for today's biggest news.
Find out about all the community happenings from non-profit, community fundraisers, church events, and more with Radio Cayman's Community Bulletin Board 3 times daily. Don't be the one to miss out on the latest information for events taking place every day on all 3 islands. Radio Cayman's Bulletin Board brought to you by Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, just around the corner, with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours.
And Royal Medical and Wellness Center in Baytown Plaza. Your health deserves nothing less than the royal treatment. Email info@royalmedical.ky or call 769-6230. WhatsApp available at 922-2119.
Listen to the general public.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. I'm Kathy Miller, your host on Talk Today for Wednesdays going forward. If you were listening to this afternoon's discussion, I had Megan Thompson, who's a sales associate and sales manager from Quavo. She had joined me in studio today as we were discussing homeownership and the property market from the realtor's perspective. Last week we spoke with some panelists here, some younger Caymanians that either had bought their first home or were in the midst of searching for their first home or property to acquire or land. So it was interesting to get, I would say, what the panelists from last week had to say, what they learned, what they felt the barriers were to owning, and Megan's perspective as well. As she said, she's been in, I think this is 3 years for her in real estate now. And she's with Quavo now for the past year. And she's 6th generation Caymanian on both sides, which I haven't met a lot of Caymanians like that. So I was impressed to hear that. It was great to hear. And to know that she's younger in real estate, so going into the wave of real estate here in Cayman, but staying away from the traditional jobs of finance and law, which was really pushed on Caymanians for many, many, many years. So it's refreshing to hear how she looks at real estate from a young Caymanian's point of view and selling it to either local people or people who are looking to buy from overseas. or people who are moving to Cayman and looking to rent. So I hope that in my next upcoming shows, it's going to be a challenge to see if we can get any banks on here, any bank representatives to talk with us about the process that buyers have to go through when they're going to a bank, what they should expect with mortgages and what they qualify for. So I am interested to speak with some bank representatives and bring them in. I also would like to do a show where I'm speaking with different developers, and hopefully some government representatives from the Ministry of Housing and Planning as well, because I do know that those two ministries there, they were looking about this time last year before COVID really hit Cayman, before we went into lockdown at least. I know that there's initiatives out there in looking at affordable housing solutions for the Cayman Islands. And that initiative brought together real estate agents, developers, homeowners, people renting, people who just own businesses. It brought many different groups. It was a bunch of different think tanks that were organized. And these people were all getting together to say, okay, this is why Cayman is the way it is now. This is what we can look at to make it easier for Caymanians and residents to acquire land. And this is something else that we could do or we can't do. So they were really giving the reality of what was going on in the Cayman Islands. And I'd be interested to have these people join us in subsequent shows. So looking forward to that, hopefully. You can give me a call during this open line segment at 1-800-534-8255. That's toll free for Flow customers, or 949-8037. 949-6990. Or you can WhatsApp us at 925-3261. If you have any thoughts that you would like to share in regards to the conversation that I had with Megan for homeownership in the Cayman Islands, what has your experience been? Do you own property? Have you tried to sell? Have you been fortunate enough to acquire generational land? That's a big thing. What are your thoughts on foreign investment and development in the Cayman Islands? I would love to hear from you, so please do give me a call. In the meantime, I also invite callers to talk about any Valentine's Day traditions, old-time traditions in the Cayman Islands, what you used to do, also what you might be doing now. So I know Valentine's Day isn't necessarily, it's what they call a commercial day. It was just meant for sales, for businesses. And that's, a lot of people have the thought of, don't celebrate Valentine's Day. It's not a big deal. We don't even really push it as a sales initiative here at Radio Cayman. But it's a day that people do enjoy. They celebrate. I don't think there's anything wrong with having an extra day in the year that you might put a little bit more emphasis on love with it, whether it's your romantic relationship with a partner, whether it's the love you have for your family and friends. Could be the love you have for your coworkers. So we're going to see who brings the cookies and donuts and the chocolates on Friday here at work. I do believe we have one caller online joining us. So good afternoon, caller. Thanks for calling Talk Today.
Hello, ma'am. Good afternoon to you.
How are you doing?
Could not be better, thank you.
Excellent.
And you, I hope you're well there.
I am well, thank you, sir.
I heard you talking about real estate and land and whatnot. And
yes.
I've been involved in the fight, and unfortunately against government, giving permission for right-of-ways, access to the sea to be taken away. Mm-hmm. Because they produced a report, 1,100 and odd pages, of identifying all of these right-of-ways. There's a court case where in 2001, over 500 affidavits went in claiming right-of-ways, and the government has not registered one of those right-of-ways yet. And you have planning where you have right-of-ways that are shown on the map, shown on the land registry map, and they give permission to developers to block these right-of-ways to make them inaccessible. These are pedestrian as well as vehicular right-of-ways. For instance, on the north boundary of the Royal Palm site and the north boundary of the Coral Caymanian site, two right-of-ways. One right-of-way on each site.
Sorry, you said Royal Palms, and what was the second location?
Coral Caymanian Hotel.
Okay.
And they gave permission for the DART Foundation for their 100-story building, which is a tunnel. They gave permission for those to be blocked without a resolution of what was going to happen. Now, DART has offered and wanted to change those two right-of-ways to the south boundary of Royal Palms. But when they, after the fact, so unlawfully, planning granted permission for the right-of-ways to be blocked, and then they go to the south boundary and they say, oh, we're going to move them over there. Unlawfully. Planning gave permission. Then they went to the Registrar of Lands and said, well, we want to move it. Registrar of Lands says, I can't register it. Where the Kimpton Hotel is, at the end of Raleigh Quay Road, which is the north road running in on the north side of the Kimpton,
yes,
there was a 12-foot right-of-way, half a vehicular right-of-way. Halfway down that road, planning has allowed DART to block that road so a vehicle cannot get there anymore. Yes. So you have a vehicular right-of-way to which vehicles do not have access. Thanks to planning, thanks to government, thanks to all the ministers.
I remember when that happened.
And in front of the condos, the Kimpton condos,
yes,
there was another 12-foot right-of-way. That one is just north of Calico Jacks. That right-of-way also, there is no longer any vehicular access to a vehicular right-of-way.
Right.
You have the map now that planning is now considering. That was also unlawful. And they want to combine the one north of Calico Jacks with the one at the end of Raleigh Quay Road and to make a 24-foot right-of-way, vehicular right-of-way to which vehicles can't access. North of Tiki Beach, north of the Kimpton,
yes,
there are 7 prescriptive vehicular right-of-ways shown on the map, shown in the government report, all identified from pictures going back into the 50s. That those are areas where people have gone and driven their cars. And they're now going to consider to put in whatever this is they're going to be putting under the bridge, the canal that we knew was always going to be built there, so that DART can compete probably with the North Sound trip operators, whatever they're doing. But they're now, planning is now going to consider this without rectifying the matter of the fact that those are camping areas on the beach and there's 7 vehicular right-of-ways going in that they're trying to deny the public access to. And so this is just a small area, very small, tiny area of what's going on. Barcus is another whole area that leave government and these developers alone, and it will be taken totally away from Caymanian, totally.
Yeah, and there's supposed to be a big development happening in Barkers, like a little Camana Bay.
But yet still, our people are so intimidated and so victimized when they do speak up to come out. Most people are afraid of coming out.
Do you think they are victimized? And if they are, how so? I mean...
You're asking a question, I'm sure you know the answer. If you're a civil servant, you can't say anything. So you take a civil servant, 5,000 that they have, 5,000 civil servants, whatever it is.
Right.
Add in some spouses, add in some children, and you're up to about 12 to 15,000 Caymanians. They're too afraid to open their mouth because of what will happen. Their promotions will go down the tube. You know what happens. We all know what happens.
I find that this generation more so, or lately, not even necessarily this generation, but in my experience in Cayman in the past 5 years, even more than the past 10 years, people are speaking up a lot more than they used to. And that before it used to be the norm, just, hush, hush, don't say anything because as you said, their livelihoods could be threatened, their jobs could be threatened, statuses could be threatened here. There was a lot of things to consider, so it was better, just mind your own business and just look out for yourself here. And then that makes a really non-conducive way of operating and unifying. You can't unify with your people. You're teaching people division and to not speak up for your country and for your rights. When that road closure happened with, I think you said north of Raleigh Quay, north of Kimpton. I remember when that happened, and I thought that went to the courts. I could be wrong, but that was a real big uproar. And that was the uproar that was needed. And we do need more of it. If people are finding that, hey, things are unlawfully happening, nothing's being consulted, nothing of this is being brought to the public and properly consulted. If you don't use your voice, you're going to lose it. And I think for many years, people were taught to not use your voice because they were going to lose what they had already. And yes, I am a civil servant. I am not Caymanian. There is a lot for me to lose. If it happens, so be it. I'm never not going to use my voice, and I'm never not going to encourage other people to use their voice. But I think if things are unlawfully happening as well, how is it not being brought to the courts? Who has to bring it to the courts?
Well, when it was brought to the court for the road, they said it was out of time. So the merits of the case were never discussed in court. That's the way the government took care of that. Very simple. No justice. Rule of law doesn't amount to a hill of beans in this country. They use that terminology just to perpetrate lawlessness. That's what the government does. Unlawfulness. It doesn't amount to a hill of beans. Sad. And yes, there are some more people that are standing up, and that's why they formed the Royal Cayman Islands Army, because they are now afraid of the few Caymanians that are beginning to stand up. So that's why they need 175 people armed with the teeth, and when the order is given to shoot, and to shoot a Caymanian, that person, if they don't shoot their fellow Caymanian and kill him, then they'll be charged and court-martialed for refusing to obey an order. They formed that army. They didn't even have a law to do it. It was a law. It was a mercenary force. Just like today, they still don't have a law for the Coast Guard. And this Royal Cayman Islands Army, run by the English Army people, they want to take away some of the boats that the Coast Guard now have, and they want to have it.
Interesting.
An army is like fire. A wonderful servant, but a bad master.
Wow.
Look at Jamaica, what the army is doing, and the criminality that they perpetrate over there, fighting against the people.
Yes, but Jamaica is, very different society as well, and very different, but also a very outspoken society too. And I don't mean to cut you off, caller, but I do have to go to our 2 p.m. headline news. So you can stay with us, or you can call back in a couple of minutes after the headline news is over. Okay, thank you.
You are listening to Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only 2 species that we have here on Island.
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice.
It is in the best interest of the people of these islands.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
With your latest headlines, I'm Shanda Gallego from Radio Cayman's newsroom. The Ombudsman orders the Cabinet Office to release portions of Cabinet meeting minutes relating to the Smith-Barcadere redevelopment project. The Cabinet Office denied a Freedom of Information request, stating that the extract was a record of deliberations arising in the course of Cabinet proceedings. During an appeal, the Ombudsman found that the information is not exempt under the law and ordered the Cabinet Office to disclose the extract related to this decision. Turning to international news now, more than 23 people were killed in simultaneous raids on 5 districts in Nigeria's Kaduna State by armed assailants Tuesday. Authorities in the state confirmed the killings in a statement released by the Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs. The latest raids came barely 72 hours after armed gangs invaded Birnin Gwari and Kajuru districts, killing 19 people. Many shops were looted in the attacks and 10 residents were killed in one district alone in Tuesday's attack, the commissioner said. Prosecutors in the U.S. state of Georgia are investigating attempts by former U.S. President Donald Trump to overturn results from last November's election. Mr. Trump was recorded telling the state's top election official to find more than 11,000 votes, enough to give him victory there. The official is heard replying that Georgia's results are correct. Joe Biden's win in Georgia and other swing states secured him the presidency. Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis sent a letter asking state officials to preserve documents, including those relating to the phone call, and saying that a criminal investigation was being carried out. And after 130 years on kitchen tables, Aunt Jemima products will have a new name, Pearl Milling Company. The announcement from PepsiCo brand comes almost 8 months after the company said it would remove the Aunt Jemima name, acknowledging it was based on a racial stereotype. The new name is a nod to the original mill that began producing the self-rising pancake mix in 1889. The rebranded products will be available starting in June 2021. Those are your latest headlines here on Radio Cayman. I'm Shanda Gallego.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Your voice, your choice, your radio.
You still run rings around your kids or grandkids. You can show the young people a thing or two. You wouldn't say you're old just yet. You may not think you're vulnerable to COVID-19, but you are. High-risk individuals with COVID can get long-term damage, including lung damage, brain fog, and loss of smell. In some cases, they may die. People age over 60 are strongly encouraged to get vaccinated for yourself, your family, and the community to keep yourself healthy and feeling young. For information on how priority individuals can get vaccinated, visit hsa.ky.
Listen to the general public.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Welcome back to Talk Today. I'm Kathy Miller, your host on Wednesdays, going forward on Talk Today. You can give us a call at 1-800-534-8255, 949-8037, 949-6990, or WhatsApp us at 925-3261. We did have a caller on the line, and we're returning to that call. I believe the caller is still there. Good afternoon, caller.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much for giving me as much time as you have.
Thanks for staying on the line. I do want to say, you had mentioned your thoughts on us having an army, and you related that to Jamaica, and I'm not trying to be insensitive to you by saying it's dramatic, but I don't think it's going to go to the point of the army's going to shoot somebody on sight because they're not compliant. I believe that Caymanians are very compliant. They just we're very compliant. We're not an unruly society and unruly people. We are just more now using our voices, and it's important, if you're going to use your voice, to do it with logic, to do it with some sense. Don't just use your voice to make some noise. And I don't see that necessarily happening with the people that have the ability to have a movement going on these islands.
Okay. With due respect, these things start out at one thing and end up another. This is creeping intimidation is what this is all about. The British are experts at it. They've done it in all the territories, all the colonies.
That's true.
All the countries going into independence. They've created this atmosphere of violence by introducing militarism. So freedom fighters, in order, just talk to the people of India and throughout Africa when people tried to move towards independence and
absolutely. You're 100%.
I don't want to take too much of your time, but as I said, fire, a good servant, a horrible master. There will come a time when they will regret of forming this army that's run by the British Army. Caymanians have no control over what happens in that. None whatsoever. We have the army, we have the police, we have the Coast Guard, we have Customs, Border Control. We have all these already armed services, and now we're adding an army. Need it like a hole in the head. Now, back to beach accesses and that. So
we do have two other callers, so if you could wrap up your points.
That's what I know.
Thank you.
I wanted finished. We were in court on the 29th of January in connection with the Royal Palms. The judge has ordered that they have to come back, the DART lawyers have to come back, and they did not have the Registrar of Lands, nor did they have the Public Lands Commission present, because that's the organization, government charged with the oversight of public lands, to get their opinion on what DART wants them to do. And then the Registrar of Lands is, why did she refuse? So, because it was originally ex parte, just the DART lawyers to be present without these other people. So we'll get a date for that. Now, it was originally supposed to be in chambers, private, with only the people who have their name down, the four of us, who have our names down as the interveners in what was occurring on October the 20th, 2019 in court. But Judge Ramsey Hale has opened it up and making it an open hearing, because she said she recognizes the public importance and public interest of access to the beaches. If anyone who's listening is interested, my number is 916-0707. That's 916-0707. So you can make contact with me. I'll put you in a WhatsApp group, and I'll let you know when we hear the next session is going to be in court on this subject. And we also want to get you involved in what they're trying to do north of Tiki Beach and the two right-of-ways in front of the Kimpton. Leave it alone, we will lose all our accesses to the beach. That is, and government is behind it. Government's refusing to register the right-of-ways that were submitted back in 2001 by 500 Caymanians signing affidavits. We're fighting against the Attorney General and all of Cabinet. Every last one of them are against the registration. And also many current sitting MPs are against the registration. And they tried to change the law in October of last year to allow DART to look backwards, and right-of-ways that even had been registered would give him the right to go into court and extinguish those right-of-ways that are currently existing. That's what they tried to do, and we opposed it, and we made submissions to which they've never replied.
Okay. Thank you, caller. I appreciate your contribution. 916-0707 if you would like to get in touch with the caller. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye, ma'am.
Let us take the next caller to talk today. Thank you for hanging out with us and waiting for that call to be finished. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, caller. You're on air.
Yes, good afternoon. I want to speak about the public bus transport system in Cayman.
Okay.
And I did speak about this many times. And His Excellency, the Governor, was in the show one day, and he promised me that he will speak to Mr. Frans Manderson to correct the issues I complain about, the Director of Public Transport and the inspectors of public transport, why they are not doing their job to make those drivers not just to drive to Bodentown and turn from Bodentown and come to Georgetown. And there is certain drivers like David and Raymond, and those drivers always, they don't finish their route. And those drivers' behavior and attitude is not good. And the public system failure, I put the responsibility in the director of public transport, number one. Number two, in the board of public transport board, and also in the premier, because he appoints such people in the board. They are not doing any good job. And I put the number one responsibility too in the Mr. Manderson not responding to the promise the governor made in the show that he will deal with those drivers and do something about their behavior, because it's becoming unacceptable that somebody wait in North Side or East End 4 hours or 3 hours to see a bus coming to there. And this is not acceptable anymore. The failure of the public bus transport system in Cayman is I'm held responsible to Mr. McLaughlin, to
Yes, sir.
Mr.
You've mentioned the names already, but what is your solution? Do you have a solution? Any suggested solution?
To take the public transport system and give it to somebody who can run the system the right way, and to people who can operate, to take it from the hand of the owners now and put it in the hand of one owner who can operate it, or the government. The other solution, like they bring free buses into town, they bring government buses, and that's a new revenue for government. And this is the solution.
Okay, thank you so much.
Excellent. The problem is one nationality control the bus system and drive in the public bus system, and their behavior is bad. I'm not saying all the drivers, but some of them is very bad.
All right. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that you gave a solution. I agree that we do need to improve the public bus transportation system, and the outer line districts do not get as much or as frequent buses coming through there. So I do agree with that. Thank you for your call. Caller, we have another call online. Good afternoon. Thank you for Talk Today.
Hello. Good afternoon, Captain Miller. Thank you for taking my call. I'm Quincy Brown.
Mr. Brown, I could not recognize that voice of yours. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing very well. I'm in a very good space mentally, spiritually, and physically. I'm doing very well, and I'm pleasantly surprised to turn my radio on and hear your voice.
Well, I'm sure you hear my voice somewhat often, but not necessarily hosting a talk show, so
Exactly.
I'm glad that you're calling. Thanks for calling, Quincy.
Thank you for taking my call. I'm very grateful, and I think you bring a fresh approach to the talk show. I think you're fair, and it's always good to hear a woman's voice hosting the show. So all kudos to you. Congratulations. Yeah?
Thank you so much, Quincy. That's very kind. I appreciate your support.
Very welcome. It's always a pleasure to perform with you on the Rundown stage as well. May we get to do that again.
Did Henry ask you to call me? Because he ran into me and asked if I would do Rundown again this year.
Not at all. Not at all. Let's just say this is a serendipitous sort of afternoon. And why I have called, though, Kathy, is one, I want to say that we're going to get very busy very soon at the radio station. I'm no longer employed for Radio Cayman. I'm no longer employed at any radio station, as a matter of fact. I sort of do my own podcasting. I am the host of Park Carib Gardens, but as a freelance media personality, I am able to lend my voice at all radio stations, and the season is duly upon us. You know of which season I speak.
Election season.
That's correct. You are on the ball. We're on the same page, and even the caller that just called in, I'm not going to speak to bus transportation today. I've already done so. I did a video on Facebook Live 2 years ago. Sandy Hill carried it on Cayman Mile Road, and it's also on my Facebook page. So what I had to say about the public transportation in this country, I have already said. And like yourself, if I say something, I can stick by it. I have always viewed you, Kathy, as a Canadian Jamaican Caymanian. Are you not?
Well, how did Jamaican come before Caymanian? I just want to know that.
Well, because that's where both you and I go for refuge, to grow spiritually and to retreat. Both you and I enjoy the country that is called Jamaica. I know that.
I'm not sure I go there to grow spiritually. I go for parties more than anything else, I would say that.
That's why I respect you, Kathy Miller, because you are candid. you are honest. And we need more people like that in this country, because at the end of the day, this is our home. Whether you're generational or you just arrived on Cayman Airways at Owen Roberts 10 years ago, this is our home. We must speak out, and we must be responsible, because, let me tell you, April Cummings and myself, we both have a lot of respect for Sandy Hill. Now, her style of delivery on air is
As do I.
different.
As do I.
Right, and she has a lot of following. Now, why did I call this afternoon? It's double-fold. I wanted to find out, when I approached Juliana O'Connor-Connolly, the Honorable Minister, and when I approached Moses Kirkernel, the Honorable Minister of Tourism, I want Brackers and Little Caymanians to answer this question. It's a rhetorical question. Should I say to them, you all have done a fantastic job, go for another term? Or should I say, you have served your islands well, it's time to step down? Brackers, I know you're tuned in. Little Caymanians, I know you're tuned in. How should I approach the two government ministers? It's a rhetorical question. And with that, I'm going to sign off. I'm on Cayman Brack. It's a beautiful day. I look forward to returning to Prospect, where I live.
Wait, Quincy, I have one question for you.
I'm listening. Yes, Mom.
Please repeat the name of your podcast, and where can people find this podcast?
Yes, ma'am. All together, no spaces, Brack Carib Gardens. There's no space. All together, Brack Carib Gardens. You can find me on YouTube, and you can also find me on Facebook, because sometimes I use Facebook Live or I use StreamYard to bring the broadcast. It's a talk show. It's a podcast. Sometimes we do TV. Sometimes we do radio. We started
Wonderful.
August 2016. So,
thank you, Quincy.
Listening to you, and thank you for being a voice not only for women, but being a voice for residents of the Cayman Islands who need to speak, and we fear not. Thank you. God
Thank
bless.
you so much. We're going to go to a quick commercial break right now. We do have one caller on hold, so caller, I hope that you please stay with us as we get through these next few commercials.
The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you. Are you aware of the performance of your pension plan? The Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan provides quarterly fund fact sheets for our members to stay informed with the plan's performance. For the year ended August 31st, various life cycle funds provided returns between 9.2% and 16.5%, and our all-in expense ratio is currently the lowest it's ever been, a record low at 0.72%. Visit chamberpension.ky to review our fund fact sheets. You can see the performance as far back as 10 years. Remember that pensions are a longer-term investment strategy. Focus on the long term rather than the short-term returns. The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan continues to perform for you.
Healthcare Pharmacy, caring about your health for the past 25 years. Radio Cayman's premier health show.
Alzheimer's and dementia, are they the same disorder?
Yeah, I think that's a very important question.
For the Health of It with Tara Bush.
For the Health of It with Tara Bush.
Is heard on Saturdays at 9:30 a.m. and on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Brought to you by Healthcare Pharmacy in Grand Harbor, where they care about your health. Transfer and refill your prescription online. Visit healthcarepharmacy.ky or call 947-8900. Healthcare Pharmacy, now with a new and second location in Governor's Square. The new Healthcare Pharmacy in Governor's Square is open Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Healthcare Pharmacy, where they care about your health.
Speak up at the polls this general election.
On May 26, 2021, do the right thing. Exercise your democratic right and vote. A public service announcement from your number one community station, Radio Cayman.
Listen to the general public.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. I'm Kathy Miller, your host on Wednesdays. I believe we have a caller still on the lines with us. Thank you for hanging out with us, caller, during that commercial break. Good afternoon. Welcome to Talk Today.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hello, thank you for calling.
Good afternoon, Rambo speaking. Good afternoon. Thank you for hosting.
Thank you.
What we call about today now, obviously I'm aware that the Parliament dissolved. There'll be no more sitting in the Parliament, House Parliament now. Right? Until the next administration. Right? So, I put on Facebook, right, before the year started, and I think this year too, what they plan to do before the House is dissolved. Any solution. I know you see where I'm coming from, right? The commonality. You see where it's coming from, because something will pass or approve, you know? Because over the cycle, over the years now, they got these politicians that want to get in the House now.
Yes.
With sweet talk and promise comfort of food. You see where I'm coming from?
Yes.
Everybody love that package, that money. It's very beneficial. So, obviously, Miss Miller, it's campaign time now, to the season.
Yes, sir, it is.
So everybody trying to look straight and look top notch and thing. So the whole point I can't say, you know, what they plan to perceive, you know, in the manifesto, the process business, you know, but like they always like, come around with these ideas, especially if you want to be candidates, enticing, sweet talk.
What do you mean wannabe candidates?
Also, like, I mean, on the Mall Road now, I don't talk about the social media, on the Mall Road, they got one of the politicians who want to be.
Mm-hmm.
They know it all, and the house in manner, you know?
Right.
And they want to start to run country. You see where I come from? Without the compromise, they try to bring it right, in the table. They put the cards on the table.
But I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
How does that make, I guess, these wannabe ones that think they know it all, or seem like they know it all, how does that make them differ from the ones that have been there for many terms and haven't delivered on what their promises are either?
Like differently, right?
Because they're all talking the same talk or similar talk. There's all these, this is what we can do, or promises, right?
Yeah, like, I'm not like talking to no one specifically, you know?
Oh.
But most of the politics in the season, they've been there from years, they've been there.
Yes.
They've been no time with this.
Yes.
And they got these other ones now that this way they can run things, run the show. You see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Because a lot more independents have, especially in the last election, we saw how many independent candidates have come in and what happened there.
They're not independent in female, right? They're run.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, like I say again, obviously, nothing will pass until the next administration. I know that'll be. I can't predict it.
Oh, yeah. I don't think much will change. I don't think the borders will open until elections are over. That's for sure. That's my opinion. I don't think that'll, for example, I don't think that'll happen.
I mean, the email on the threshold, 99.9% for the vulnerable, the elderly, the vaccine, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that email for. So.
Wait, I didn't understand the last sentence that you said.
No, I say
about the vaccine for the elderly.
For the vulnerable,
yes.
99.9%, they're aiming for. Then the border open up.
They're aiming for 90%, and they're at around 55% of that. They're aiming for 90% of that.
Okay, so 45% remaining, right? So they're aiming for, and then the border open up.
Around 2,300 or so to go.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I mean
But actually, that doesn't mean for it to open up. That's for it to go to reduced quarantine days of 10 days.
Okay. But you see, the whole generic I call about today, the charter, like I say again, and aiming at no one specifically, or who in Parliament now, or who won't run. But like I say again, I voted from 2005.
Yes.
I voted all election. The election I voted from, and whoever getting, nobody happy. But when I cast my vote, I satisfied. And I know if you hear that saying, my God, Mr. Brock, no weed, no vote. Serious scenario, or joke aside, no weed, no vote.
I've heard this, yes.
Yeah, that's my uncle. Yeah, I back him out too with opposition. I mean, like, the Herb thing, I know you should call the show in a minute, no? But I'm multitasking now, so I can't really work in multitasking.
I understand.
Water break.
Okay.
No water break, so.
Okay.
Next time I talk better to you, but like I said again, this charter, who in the Parliament now, or who want to decide to be in Parliament, what are they going to put on the table and fulfill it? You understand? Where they come from?
Yeah, I do understand.
Because they manifesto, when they duplicate orders.
And they tend to duplicate the manifestos every election cycle.
Yes,
I say they as an open-ended term, but I've worked in PR. I've seen this. I've worked, before I was a civil servant, I've worked on different manifestos for political parties in the Cayman Islands. So I've seen how that goes behind the scenes in that sense from a non-civil servant part in their PR strategies.
Okay, so you see all the estimated numbers, you see where coming from?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. Well, Mr. Arthur, enjoy your day, and thanks for holding the show.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your call this afternoon. Have a great day.
You're welcome.
And that brings us pretty much to an end of Talk Today this afternoon. Thank you for joining me. Again, if you want to listen to the show, go back to anything that we had discussed, you can go to our YouTube page. So just go to youtube.com, search Radio Cayman. You can find today's Talk Today show on there. It'll be there shortly, as well as all the other talk shows throughout the days. For the Record, Money Sense, For the Health of It. We have a whole slew of shows that we put on our YouTube page. So if you ever need to go back and listen, you can check us there. Thanks for joining us on Talk Today. And you're going to be back with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks tomorrow.